Have you ever noticed that your relationships always seem to end the same way? Different partners, different stories, different cities, different years, but the ending, it's always the same kind of argument, the same kind of emotional distance, the same kind of abandonment, the same kind of pain. And you're left wondering, what's wrong with you? Why do you always attract the same type of person? Why do you keep repeating the same mistakes? Why does it feel like there's an invisible script controlling your love life? Carl Jung actually uncovered the answer. And the answer might shock you. Because that script, it does exist. And you didn't write it. Your parents did. Let me tell you about a woman named Emily. Emily was 38 years old, and she had a relationship history that seemed like an infinite loop. 3 marriages, 6 serious relationships, all ending in the exact same way. It would start intensely, overwhelming passion, a connection that felt like fate. Then, gradually, the partner would become distant, less available, more critical, colder. Emily would try harder. She'd try to please him. She'd give up parts of herself, losing her own identity, trying to hold on to the relationship. And eventually, the partner would leave, or she'd explode and end it in despair. The cycle repeated itself, always. At 38, Emily had 3 divorces, 3 times the same pattern, 3 different men who became the same story. And the most disturbing thing, Emily could see the pattern repeating itself. She knew, in the middle of the relationship, that it was going to end badly. But she couldn't stop it. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You see it happening. You know what's going to happen. But your hands won't respond. Your body keeps going in the same direction. When Emily sought help at 38, the first question she asked was this: why do I only attract emotionally unavailable men? Jung's answer would change everything. You don't attract emotionally unavailable men by chance. You recognize them. You feel familiarity with them. And familiarity gets confused with love. Let me explain. Emily's dad was a man who was physically present but completely emotionally absent. Hard worker, provider, silent, distant. He'd leave for work early, come home late, sit in front of the television, eat dinner in silence and go to sleep. On weekends, he was busy with projects, fixing things, in the yard, in the garage, anywhere that wasn't near the family. He never said "I love you" to Emily, never praised her, never showed affection. He was never emotionally available when she needed him. Emily grew up trying to win her dad's attention, trying to be good enough, trying to deserve love. She got good grades for him to notice. She helped with chores for him to approve. She stayed quiet so as not to bother him. And she never succeeded. Her dad died when Emily was 22. He died without ever having told her that he loved her, without ever expressing pride, without ever filling the void that his emotional absence created. That pattern got installed in her unconscious like a computer program, a code that said, love means striving to conquer someone who isn't available. When Emily grew up and started dating, she wasn't consciously seeking out unavailable men. But her unconscious recognized them instantly. Available, affectionate, and present men seemed boring to her. No chemistry, no passion. None of that feeling that something important was happening. Distant, cold, and unavailable men seemed electrifying. Instant passion, magnetic connection, that feeling that he's special. It wasn't connection, it was recognition. Her unconscious was saying, this one's like Dad, this one I know how to handle, this one I need to conquer. And the cycle repeated itself. First husband, as met at 24, he was mysterious, distant, worked too much. Emily spent 3 years trying to get him to open up. He never did. She exhausted herself. Second husband, met at 29. He seemed different at first, more communicative, more present. But he gradually closed off. He became exactly like the first one. Emily spent 4 years trying to get back the man he was in the beginning. She never succeeded. Third husband, met at 34. This time she swore it would be different. But the pattern repeated itself with surgical precision. The same cycle, the same hope, the same disappointment. 3 attempts, the same result. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat. We repeat painful patterns, not because we like to suffer, but because the familiar feels safe, even when it's destructive. Your nervous system was calibrated in childhood. What you experienced as love back then became your template for love forever. If love meant intermittent abandonment, you're going to seek out partners who abandon you intermittently. If love meant constant criticism, you're going to seek out partners who criticize you constantly. If love meant having to win attention, you're going to seek out partners who make you win their attention. It's not a conscious choice, it's unconscious programming. And the scariest part, when you find someone who offers healthy love, your nervous system rejects it. It feels wrong. It feels boring. It feels like something is missing. What's missing is the trauma and the adrenaline of uncertainty and the emotional roller coaster that you learn to call love. But don't worry, because now I'm going to show you the 4 parental patterns that create the 4 types of repetitive relationships. First pattern, emotionally unavailable parents. These parents were physically present, but emotionally absent. They didn't express affection. They didn't validate feelings. They weren't available when the child needed connection. The dad or mum worked too much, or was always distracted, or simply didn't know how to connect emotionally. The child learns that love means striving to get attention. That love is something that needs to be conquered. That you're never good enough to deserve unconditional love. In adulthood, these people attract emotionally unavailable partners. They confuse distance with mystery. They confuse having to conquer with passion. They confuse breadcrumbs of affection with true love. And when they find someone available, they feel that something is wrong. Where's the challenge? Where's the conquest? If he's available, it must be because he's not worth it. Emily embodied this pattern. Each partner was a new attempt to win her dad's love, and each failure was the confirmation that she wasn't good enough. Second pattern, critical and perfectionist parents. These parents were never satisfied. Nothing was good enough. Every achievement was minimized. Each mistake was amplified. You got a B+. Why didn't you get an A? You came in second place? Why didn't you win first? You did well, but you could have done better. The child learns that love means performing perfectly, that any failure means loss of love, that you only have value when you don't make mistakes. In adulthood, these people attract critical partners, or they become excessively self-critical in relationships. They accept destructive criticism as normal. They think they deserve to be corrected constantly, and when they find someone who accepts their imperfections, they become suspicious. He's not seeing my flaws? He'll notice. And leave me? I knew a guy named Michael who had this pattern. His wife was always criticizing him. The clothes he wore, the decisions he made, the way he talked, the way he drove, the way he existed. Michael thought this was normal. He thought wives were just like that. He thought it was his partner's job to correct his flaws, because his mom was like that, and his dad too. Their home was a competition of who could point out the most flaws. When a loving and gentle woman showed interest in Michael, he broke it off in 3 months. "She's too nice," he said. "She has no personality. Doesn't challenge me." What he called a challenge was constant criticism. What he called personality was an attack. What he called a lack of interest was actually unconditional acceptance. Michael didn't know how to receive love without criticism. He didn't know what to do with approval. He didn't know how to exist without someone pointing out his flaws. Third pattern, emotionally unpredictable parents. These parents swung between intense love and complete rejection. One day they were affectionate and present. The next day, they exploded in anger or became ice cold without explanation. The child never knew which version of their mom or dad they would find. The same action that generated praise yesterday generated punishment today. The child learns that love is unpredictable, that you never know what to expect, that at any moment the loved one can transform into someone hostile. And they learn to stay in a state of constant alert, reading signal, trying to predict, trying to control the uncontrollable. In adulthood, these people attract emotionally volatile partners, roller coaster relationships, extreme intensity followed by explosive fights, cycles of approach and withdrawal. And they confuse this instability with passion. Stable relationships seem monotonous. The absence of drama seems like the absence of love, a woman once told me. If he's not yelling at me or loving me intensely, I think he doesn't care. He couldn't recognize love without the roller coaster. Stability seemed like indifference. I knew a guy who had this pattern, but inverted. He became the volatile one. In every relationship, he oscillated between total devotion and absolute coldness. His partners never knew what to expect. He replicated the pattern, but on the other side, he became the version of the dad who traumatized him. Not because he wanted to hurt them, but because it was the only model of relationship he knew. Some replicate the role of victim. Others replicate the role of aggressor. But it's the same pattern operating. Fourth pattern, controlling or overprotective parents. These parents didn't allow autonomy. They made all the decisions for the child. Or they used guilt and manipulation to maintain control. After everything I've done for you, if you loved me, you'd do this. You aren't capable of deciding for yourself. The child learns that love means control, that being loved means giving up your own will, that relationships are power structures, not partnerships. In adulthood, these people either attract controlling partners or become controlling themselves. Relationships turn into power games. Intimacy is confused with possession. Jealousy and control seem like proofs of love, and when they find someone who respects their autonomy, they interpret it as disinterest. He doesn't care where I go. He doesn't want to know who I'm talking to. Then he doesn't love me. I knew a woman who ended a healthy relationship because her partner trusted her. He never checked my phone, she said, never asked where I was, never got jealous. She interpreted trust as indifference, respect as lack of interest, freedom as abandonment, because in her family, control was proof of love. If they didn't control, they didn't love. You may have recognized your pattern in one of these four, or maybe it's a combination of more than one, because it's rarely simple. Most people have elements of 2 or 3 patterns mixed, because parents rarely have only one type of dysfunction. But the point is this: the pattern isn't accidental. It was installed in childhood, and it's operating automatically, outside your conscious control. Carl Jung said something crucial about this. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Emily thought her fate was to suffer in love, that she had bad luck, that men were just like that she was cursed in relationships, and it wasn't fate. It was repetition. It was a program running in the background. It was her unconscious seeking the familiar, even when the familiar was painful. Hold on, because now I'm going to show you exactly how this happens neurologically. When you were a child, your brain was forming neural connections at maximum speed. Each experience created neurological pathways. Each repeated pattern strengthened those pathways. If the love you received was intermittent, your brain learned that love means intermittence, literally. The neural connections for love include the expectation of abandonment. If the love you received was critical, your brain learned that love includes criticism. The synapses connected the two things. Love and criticism became neurologically linked. This isn't a metaphor. It's neuroscience. The child's brain doesn't question. It absorbs. What the parents do becomes the model of what love is. And when you grow up and find someone who offers consistent love, without criticism, without abandonment, your brain finds it strange, doesn't recognize it, doesn't seem right. The available and loving person seems bland, without chemistry, You don't feel anything. However, the person who replicates the pattern of your parents awakens something. Chemistry. Passion. That feeling that this is special. That certainty that I've found the right person. It's not special. It's familiar. It's your brain recognizing the pattern and activating the same responses from childhood. The chemistry you feel isn't love. It's trauma recognition. It's your nervous system going into a state of alert because it detected something familiar. Emily described it perfectly when she met her third husband. When I looked at him, I felt an instant connection. It felt like I'd known him my entire life, like it was destiny, like I'd finally found the one. But it was destiny in the Carl Jung sense, the unconscious destiny that compelled her to repeat the pattern. Her third husband was exactly like her dad, distant, a workaholic, emotionally unavailable, and Emily spent 5 years trying to win him over, before accepting that she never would. 5 years repeating the same pattern she'd repeated her entire childhood, and her third husband, he knew. He could tell that Emily was trying too hard, that she was giving up everything, that she was living for him. But he didn't change, because emotionally unavailable people don't change because you try harder. They simply absorb your effort without giving anything in return. Emily was trying to heal her dad through her husband. She was trying to finally win the love she never had. She was fighting a battle she could never win, because her husband wasn't her dad. And even if he were, her dad would never have changed either. So, how do you break this cycle? Carl Jung gave us the answer, but it's uncomfortable. You need to make conscious what is operating in the unconscious. You need to bring to light the program that's running in the background. And that means looking at your childhood. It means admitting what your parents did or failed to do. It means feeling the pain you've avoided feeling your entire life. It's not easy. It's much more comfortable to keep repeating the pattern and blaming bad luck. It's much easier to think that the problem is other people, not you. And it's much simpler to ignore the connection between childhood and adult life. But ignoring doesn't heal. Denying doesn't change. Avoiding doesn't solve. The only way out is to go through it. See clearly. Feel completely. Integrate consciously. Emily resisted this for years. My parents did the best they could. I had a normal childhood. I have nothing to complain about. This is the sentence that keeps the cycle spinning, because admitting that your parents failed feels like betrayal, like ungratefulness, like blaming people who may already be dead or who you still love, and the culture reinforces this. Honor your father and mother. Be grateful for what you had. Others had it worse. But Carl Jung was clear. Recognizing the failures of your parents is not blaming them. It's recognizing reality. It's seeing clearly what happened. So you can change what's happening. You can recognize that your parents were limited, that they did the best they knew how, and still admit that what they did hurt you. Both things can be true at the same time. Emily only started to change when she finally admitted the truth. My dad was emotionally unavailable. That hurt me. And I spent my life seeking his attention in other men. Simple as that? Painful, but simple. And when she finally said it, out loud, something shifted. The pattern didn't disappear instantly, but for the first time, she could see it happening. When she met a new man and felt that instant chemistry, now she knew to ask, is this real attraction? Or is my pattern activating? When a man became distant, now she could realize, am I trying to win him over like I tried to win over my dad? When she felt like she wanted to erase herself to maintain the relationship, now she could stop and ask, is this love? Or is it repetition of trauma? Consciousness doesn't eliminate the pattern automatically, but it creates a gap between the trigger and the response. And in that gap, you can choose differently. You've just learned the 4 parental patterns that create repetitive relationships. You've just understood why instant chemistry can be a sign of danger, not of love. And you've just discovered that the cycle can be broken. This kind of deep knowledge about relationship patterns isn't taught anywhere. Self-help books simplify. Therapists take years to get to this. Most people never figure out why their relationships always end the same way. When you click the super thanks button, you're saying that this kind of content matters. That understanding the unconscious patterns that control our love lives is valuable. That the truth, even when painful, is preferable to blind repetition. Let me give you a concrete example of how the transformation worked for Emily. A year after starting her inner work, she met a man named Michael. Michael was different, present, attentive, available. He said what he felt. He didn't play emotional games. He didn't disappear. He didn't make her guess what he was thinking. Emily's first instinct was, "I don't feel chemistry." Before, she would have dismissed Michael immediately. Boring. No passion. Too close. But now she knew what the absence of chemistry meant. It meant that Michael wasn't activating her wounded pattern. It meant that her nervous system wasn't in alert mode. It meant that, for the first time, she was facing someone who didn't replicate her dad. Emily decided to give him a chance, even without the initial chemistry. And something interesting happened. In the first few weeks, she felt strange, uncomfortable, waiting for the moment when Michael would become distant, like all the others. That moment never came. Michael remained present. He remained available. He continued being exactly who he was from the beginning. And gradually, something that Emily had never felt began to emerge. Safety. Not the turbulent passion she knew, but something deeper. A feeling that she could relax, that she didn't need to perform, that she could be herself, that she didn't need to win anything. This was love. Real love. Not the traumatic repetition she had called love her entire life. Emily married Michael at 41, and for the first time, the relationship didn't end the same way. Because it wasn't the same pattern. What about you? Let me give you a practical exercise to start identifying your patterns. Take a piece of paper and list all your significant relationships. It doesn't have to be just romantic. Intense friendships also count. For each one, answer this. How did it start? What did you feel in the beginning? How did it end? Dyson, what was the ending pattern? What did you do during the relationship to keep the person? What did you tolerate that you shouldn't have tolerated? What did you do to keep the person that you would never do for yourself? How much of yourself did you lose trying to be what the other person wanted? If you're honest, you'll start to see the pattern. You'll see that the endings are suspiciously similar, that you did the same things, that you tolerated the same behaviors. And when you see the pattern, you can start to ask, where did this begin? Who taught me that love was like this? The answer is almost always in childhood, in what your parents did, or failed to do. Carl Jung said that we marry our parents. Not literally, of course. But we often end up with people who replicate the patterns our parents instilled in us. If your dad was overly critical, you might find yourself drawn to partners who are also critical, always picking at you, making you feel inadequate. If your mum was controlling, you might be attracted to controlling boyfriends or girlfriends, people who try to micromanage your life, telling you what to do, how to feel. If both your parents were emotionally unavailable, distant, perhaps even cold, you might find yourself attracted to partners who are also emotionally unavailable, people who struggle to connect on a deeper level, leaving you feeling alone even when you're together. And you'll call it chemistry. You'll call it passion. You might even call it destiny. It was meant to be, until you realize it's not destiny. It's repetition. It's a pattern playing out over and over again. And here's something really important that Carl Jung emphasized. You are not to blame for the pattern. You were a child when it was installed. You didn't choose it. You had no choice. But you are responsible for changing it. Now that you know, now that you understand, now that the unconscious is becoming conscious, Guilt looks to the past. Responsibility looks to the future. It's about taking control. Your parents created the pattern. You can break it. You have the power. And the good news is, repetition can be interrupted. Patterns can be broken. The script your parents wrote can be rewritten, but not automatically, not by wishing, not by sheer willpower alone. Breaking unconscious patterns requires awareness. It requires seeing clearly what is happening. It requires admitting uncomfortable truths about your history, really looking at where you came from, and then choosing differently, even when the different choice feels lackluster, even when the healthy person seems boring, even when your nervous system screams that something is wrong, because something is wrong. What's wrong is that you're experiencing love without trauma, and your brain just doesn't know what to do with it. It's unfamiliar territory. Emily needed a year to get used to Ryan. A year for her nervous system to understand that safety isn't tedium, that presence isn't weakness, that availability isn't desperation. It was uncomfortable. It was strange, but it was the only way to break the cycle. Emily's nervous system needed to be reprogrammed. She needed to learn in practice that safe love exists, that consistent presence is possible, that she didn't need to earn anything, that she was worthy of love just as she was. And the reprogramming happened slowly. Each day that Ryan was available was new evidence. Each moment of safety was a new neural connection. Each proof of consistent love weakened the old pattern. It wasn't romanticism. It was neuroplasticity. Emily's brain was literally rewiring itself for a new model of love, building new pathways. And today, 5 years later, Emily says something she never thought she'd say. I finally know what real love is, and it has nothing to do with what I thought it was. Real love isn't turbulent. It isn't unpredictable. It doesn't make you doubt yourself. It doesn't require you to conquer anything. Real love is present. It's consistent. It's safe. And it allows you to be who you are, authentically. Emily took 40 years to figure this out. You can figure it out sooner. Much sooner. Now, tell me in the comments, what pattern have you recognized in yourself? Which of the 4 parental patterns explains your repetitive relationships? Or maybe, wait, just maybe, you've already broken the cycle. Maybe you've already found someone who doesn't replicate the trauma. Comment down below. Share your experience, because each story shared helps others recognize their own patterns. And recognizing is the first step to change, to healing, to finding the love you deserve. Maybe you're in the middle of a relationship now, and you've just realized that you're repeating the pattern. Maybe you've just gotten out of yet another relationship that ended just like the others. Maybe you're still trying to understand why it never works out. Whatever your situation, knowing the pattern changes everything. You are not cursed. You don't have bad luck in love. You are not incapable of having a healthy relationship. You're just repeating a program that was installed when you were too young to understand. And now that you understand, you can start to rewrite it. The script of your parents doesn't have to be your script. Their story doesn't have to be your story. The pattern can end with you. Write it down below. I'm reading every comment.